Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Season 1, Episode 7 of The Recruit. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So the team is in Geneva, that team being Owen and Max, and unbeknownst to them, also Lester and Violet, which Violet's kind of like excited about this whole situation. Well, because it's like, right, we need Owen to screw the pooch on this situation, because if he succeeds, he's going to be like the golden boy and there's not going to be anything for us. He screws this up. We let him take all the failures and then we soak up all the victories and we come out on top, it is so interesting considering how bloodthirsty that whole building is, that they never have that animosity towards each other. I even love that later on, Violet's like, why don't you ever make it past? I mean, he's like, really? In this dirty van, we're going to have this conversation. He's like, because it seems like he's kind of been around. And it's like, yeah, the reason why I never let anything happen is because every relationship I've ever been in when the situation's like that kind of ends up terribly. And I like you too much for us to kind of ruin what we have here, which Violet was almost like, I was like, yeah, look at you, Lester. That was actually really sweet. I was almost about to say, what were you going to say to her? So the Owen and Max end up running into Xander Goy, which makes sense considering he was going to be like their contact in all of this. So it's like, yeah, I know you tried to kill me before. And he's like, I didn't send people to kill you. It's like, all right, how about we all just kind of work together, put all our obviously deep-seated issues with each other aside, and let's kind of work this out. We did get some interesting conversations between Dawn and Xander, because I kept being like, all right, so how's this whole dynamic work? So it is kind of like, hey, we're both equals, but we both approach this situation as, different. Like, he looks at her as kind of the blunt instrument. She feels like, oh, you're the weak person that can't, like, do what's kind of necessary, like the forceful way. So he's kind of like, oh, I'm all brains, you're all brawn. And it's like they're both competing for the same job. They're just going about it two different perspectives. So it's a weird like dynamic that they have. So it's we're in this together, but we're also rivals. So I was wondering how that because I literally just said that I think last episode, being like she kind of felt like she was a more dominant person in the dynamic, but it's like no, they're both kind of potentially on equal footing. But I do still feel like Dawn has like a leg up in all of that. So it's kind of like, yeah, survival of the fittest, see who ends up with this job at the end of it all. That they're specifically a promotion they're aiming for. So obviously for Max, being back home was always going to be a complicated thing, and it's just as complicated because she also has to she was initially going to try and lay low because Xander was like, yeah, Kirill, who's the head of the well, I don't think it is, it's just a mafia boss. I don't think it's like he's the head of anything, but it's like, yeah, he has contacts, even staff that works at this particular hotel. So it's only a matter of time before they find out. So while her and Owen were at dinner, someone came to her following her, trying to find out why she was back in, why she came back home. And it's like, yeah, I'm not here to start war, but if you want war, I can give you war. We can keep it peaceful. We could go to war. I could go either way. So I got your phone. Anytime he wants to contact me, he can contact me through your phone. So it is that thing too of like, yeah, not even letting Owen know, like, yeah, I ran into someone who works for Kirill. Like, didn't even let him know until like almost near the end of the episode that went down. But aside from that, it also led to Max and him having a really interesting conversation where he wanted to ask her, like, Rag, what are you going to do when this is all said and done? What are you going to do, like, when on a Saturday night, like, what you're going to stay at home? Like, what's life going to look like for you when this is all said and done? But for her, it's like, I don't want to answer that. Like, let's not even go there, because if given the opportunity, you would tell anything that I tell you to your government just for the sake of protecting the CIA, because that's your job. Which later on, Owen was like, right, I didn't tell them about your daughter. I mean, it's like, yes, Nyland knows, but it's nothing on the official record because of the vetting. It's something Nyland knows, but he's not going to tell anyone. He's going to kind of keep that to himself. So that's what he means, I think, when he says, like, right, I didn't tell them because it's none of their business, because he also made it clear last episode he didn't want to use like Carolina as like leverage because he found out her name in this episode. I mean, I'm fairly certain Max has said her daughter's name before now. It's like once or twice she said it like earlier in the season, but this is the first time Owen's ever heard her name. Oh, but of course the Geneva situation wasn't going to go smoothly. I didn't expect the screw up to be that. I was like, what happened? Did something not go right? It's like, no, Owen gave them the wrong time. Like, well, it's like, oh, it's supposed to be like 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's time in America. The time wasn't adjusted for being in Geneva, the time zone. And so they're 6 hours earlier. So now that the bank account was already kind of flagged the moment they try to access it, because all those sanctions are still in place at this point in time. Now, like, people are going to be called and it's going to become an official thing. So they're kind of screwed. It's like, well, what do we do? Owen's trying to call up everybody. He can't get Hannah. He can't get, Terrence, because hey, Terrence and Linus have got to be together, so maybe he could get Linus on the line and we could figure this out. So he ended up having to call Amelia, which was awkward because she's like, oh, you're trying to like, it's supposed to be a booty call. It's like, no, I'm in Geneva. Could you go over to my place? And it's like, really? It's like, please, I really screwed this up. And because Amelia's like, right, I do like you. Because I love she had that conversation with Giannis earlier of like, oh, it's super quiet around here, huh? Don't you want to be in the know when it all comes coming crashing down? But Giannis is like, no, I'd rather get hit by a bus than get the cancer diagnosis. You know, that way it's quick. And she's like, yeah, Giannis, don't be stupid. We both know it's never quick around here. Which Giannis does call Owen about the missile situation because I forgot what was the development with it. Oh, it ended up in a place that is terrorist hotbed. That it's like, cool. Those weapons are there. What are we going to do? We're screwed. And so Owen's like, all right, shut up, Giannis, and let me think. Oh, okay. So basically, we need a whole bunch of noise. But like, eventually, the stories can get out. What we're going to do is we're going to muddy the puddle. Like, if we muddy it with so much of making it as confusing as possible, throwing a whole bunch of nonsense so that you can't isolate it as a single headline of U.S. CIA supplies terrorists with missiles, you know, so that we don't have that headline above our heads. We jumble it, though, which John is like, oh, that's the stupidest, actually most genius thing you've ever said. He's like, thanks. So, you might want to go find the missiles, homie. So, we'll see whether or not Giannis has any luck on that front. But Amelia shows up, ends up, saying like, hey, I'm here because Owen asked me to. Sadly, Linus couldn't do anything now that it was already attempted and it's already been flagged again. Now it's not even a thing of he can move up the open window for it. Now he can't even do that now. So Owen's kind of screwed on that front. Max is suggesting, hey, why don't we just rob the bank? That's not an option. And then he notices a van and he's like, what? Because he heard the music in the background. He was like, wait, I called up Lester earlier. I heard that music. So he goes over to the van and is like, cool. Nala sent you here, and even Max is like, yeah, like, if you screw the pooch on this, they're going to put all the blame on you. So he's like, all right, let's get in the van. Let's brainstorm. Xander comes over. It's like, cool, let's all get in the van and talk this out. Which I love that line of kitchens. I'm like, who doesn't know Lester? Lester must be a way bigger deal than he kind of lets on. Because you kind of just assume, like, oh, Lester's nobody special. You know who he reminds me of? Like, just speaking of the spy stuff, Sam, Bruce Campbell's character from Burn Notice. That was always like the thing. That was the joke. That's one of the things Bruce Campbell like always like said and like about the character was like, hey, I didn't have to be anything because Sam is an ex this. He's an ex that. He was never like you know. And it's kind of like that. You kind of get that feel from the way everyone kind of brings up. It's like, Kitchens, what are you doing here? Wait, the thing that he thought they were doing, that what they were doing to Owen, he thought that's what they were doing to him. And it's like, oh, you didn't even let me know, like, this was all happening in my neck of the woods either. So, but it's like, all right, so how are we going to figure this out? And I love Owen's like, wait, what is Langley's number one mandate? And I love both simultaneously, Xander and Lester are like, fuck over China. And then Violet was like, no, gather intelligence. So The point was they needed to gather intelligence on the bank teller that they were working with, and the banker and the manager, and if they get enough dirt on them, they can get their way. And Lester had a bomb to kind of drop on them, and with a little help, quite a bit of help from Max's intimidation tactics, because she does know the type of people where it's like, right, you won't even have to worry about them burning this bank down. They will just burn you, the people I know. And especially if they find out you've been working with the CIA, he's like, no, that's not true. It's like, yeah, but who are they really going to believe? So get into her safety deposit box. She doesn't have the money, but she has what she needs to cover for it. All that thing is, hey, and because she eventually told him what the dirt she has on Xander is. Kirill, the guy she's meeting with, yeah, it turns out Xander was the one sleeping with his wife. He always knew his wife was having an affair, he just didn't know with who. Max has known the entire time, and now she gets to drop that bomb, and now she ended up getting 2 million euros out of it. So I don't know if that fully covers everything, because at the end of the day, they need it. I mean, maybe they've got some in between, but it's like, at the very least, like, that was the whole point of, like, the 7 mil she already got from the deal, plus they needed at least, like, 3 mil more. Maybe they're going to make that 9 mil stretch, or maybe they've already kind of compensated for that mil they were behind on. So that ended up working out, but the problem is they ended up selling out Xander in the process. But then we see that woman who, I could be mistaken, isn't that the same woman that oh god, Owen was talking to at the bar, which I love that he was like, that the moment she slipped up, she was like, oh, she must be something. He's like, I never told you the person I was here it's a she, and she's like, no, like, I just assumed. He's like, wait, I get it. You're kind of like trying to trap me. You're trying to seduce me. And he's like, no, go ahead. Like, this has never happened before. This is the first time. She's like, okay, I'm going to leave. He's like, no, come on. I forgot what the exact wording he was, like sexploited or something like that. He's like, yeah, I've never been sexploited before. When he was saying that to the bartender, it's like, the guy doesn't care, dude. But I think that's the same one. We see her multiple times. She was even there with Kirill. So I'm like, she must be Kirill's go-to person, because later on she straight up murders Xander. So, which immediately in my brain I'm like, wait, you don't think that's Max's daughter? Because at first I was like, how old is that character supposed to be? Because she might be her young. Cause we never actually knew when Max's daughter died. Like, obviously she's been doing this like CIA stuff for the past 12 years. So that's why I was thinking, like, right, is her daughter actually dead? Or is her daughter somewhere she just doesn't know? Or is it just like, no, she legitimately doesn't know that her daughter's still alive? And that's why at first I was like, we don't know how old, like, because they've kept that super vague. Because I brought that up previously, like, oh, could it be that Max's plan is to actually go back to Belarus, get her daughter, and bounce and disappear? Like, what if her daughter's actually still alive? And it's like, the fact is that woman that hides in the shadows, she was there when, I mean, obviously Kirill sent her out to kind of investigate, but there was already that guy following anyway. So not less that lady is like someone else's person, but I would assume, like, who would have the motive to go after Xander right now? It'd have to be Kirill. Not less this is, I'm so stupid. Not less it's something about not Bob. Keith, like the secretary said, like it might be him. Because he'd have motive to go after Xander too, because Xander's the one that dropped his name, and it's like, oh, he must be up to something. So not unless he's taking advantage of the Kirill situation, and the timing just happened to work out like that. I don't know. It just felt too timely considering Max just dropped his name. In fact, she had photos of the hours and hours and hours that they spent together. So I even love the poor bastard. The moment he walked in his room, Xander was like, yeah, I'm dead. He knew someone broke in there and was like looking for something or waiting for an opportunity to strike. Walked away dead. Which I'm sure Max kind of has no love lost there, because it's like, yeah, you kind of threw me to the wolves. You kind of left me high and dry. So screw you. I'm not too concerned about that. So... well, obviously, I also skipped over it, but like Max and Owen finally bumping uglies. I actually didn't expect that to happen. I figured it was going to be a thing of like, it might happen, but it probably wouldn't, because of him and Hannah. But it was like, oh, wow, you guys actually did it. Because I do think on some level, because Max's whole thing is like, right, can you honestly tell me Owen that you can trust those people not to try and screw you over, which he knows he can't. He's known since he learned the hard way on day two not to trust, especially Violet and Lester. They like Lester's try to be like super cool with you and everything, but even then, it's like once again, it's a very cutthroat place. Time and time again, he's seen like it does not foster teamwork. It in fact fosters betrayal, and obviously, it's like, hey, you might as well, kind of almost like take a leap of faith rather, well, not having a leap of faith with them, but it's like you kind of only can rely on yourself, because if you trust, you don't want to end up dead because you trusted the wrong person. So, which is ironic coming from Max, because she's most likely the one person he shouldn't trust at all. Because even he threw back in her face like what she said at the beginning of the season of, because our interests are aligned. But for her, it's like, yeah, we're beyond just that. Like, we are forever intertwined, whether you like it or not. She even gave him that watch, which I'm like, it definitely has to have a tracking device in it. She's not letting him know. She even gave him a gun, but he put it back in the box. I'm like, that's probably not going to be good. But he did take something out of the box after reading it. He did put it back. So he put it in his pocket, and he put the gun back in the deposit, which I thought was also sad too. That she left the photo of her daughter behind. Well, it was actually a photo of her as a baby in Max's arms, and the bank teller the bank manager or whatever. That dude was like, "Yeah, don't ever come back here again." So not unless she plans on when she's in a powerful enough position to come back here and it not being an issue. But it might also just be like I don't want to keep that photo around because it's going to be too much of a reminder of what I've lost. Like I already have a tough enough time just going about daily life. I don't need that photo, especially considering like this is the situation being what it is, where things could go sideways at any point in time. So I need to be focused, and that's in fact going to distract me. So there's probably those are probably some of the deeper reasons why she decided to leave the photo behind. Because once again, maybe she could always come back to get it, or maybe she's just like, I don't need it right now, or just maybe I won't come back for it. Obviously, stateside, we have everything with Hannah and her mom, which her mom wants her to take advantage of the situation with Jeff. And it's like, hey, we need some information. I need you to take advantage of it. Cool. Oh, she pumped Jeff for information, which you could tell she did feel bad about it. But it's like, yeah, this is just how things work, which obviously Hannah has a complicated feeling just about everything with her family, her job, just everything. And then on top of that, she ends up finding out later on she got Jeff fired because her mom was actually helping out Keith find a leak in his amongst his staff, and they found it because Jeff likes to run his mouth off to other people, and it turns out, oh, he's the leak. So that kind of blew up in his face. I wonder, does he just run? I mean, to be fair, it makes sense too, because he's the guy that's like, hey, I'm so-and-so from the White House. Like, there's the whole Terrence and Owen joke. So maybe that's supposed to from the very beginning kind of indicate he's always got very loose lips, always trying to like showboat a little bit, be like, oh, look at me, I'm special. Maybe that's what that is. Which Hannah feels bad because not only she got lied and manipulated by her mom, and her mom's like, hey, don't worry, like Keith owes me a favor, now I owe you one. It's like, yeah, you don't see how that problem is. Like for her, it's like, mom, you don't even see how messed up that is. But at the same time, it's just like, yeah, that's my family. Like she convinced Terrence, like, hey, after finding out about everything with Owen, because even Amelia was like, yeah, he's fine for now, but we all know he's going to find another Shark Tank to dive into, and they all know him too well. So it's like, hey, we got to go save Owen, and she admitted that, she's like, it's not about Owen, which I think it still is, but she's like, I just need an excuse to get away from my life. I just need to go focus on, like, saving Owen will give me a purpose. Because I didn't talk about it. The opening to the episode, the cold opening, was their first meeting 3 years ago. And it's like, yeah, you guys, like, broke up. Like, because didn't Terrence say it's been 2 years? Which I thought, like, what? That's why I was kind of confused on the dating situation, because I was like, wait, did they only date for 6 months? So you're saying, like, they broke up 2 years ago and they were only dating for 6 months? Or was it a situation of, Because that's what I kept bouncing back and forth between. Like, I wasn't sure about the exact time frame of how long they actually dated. But, both of them are in love and sprung, and they haven't really acted upon it. So, but Terrence and Hannah do show up in Geneva. The problem is Xander's killer's outside the hotel, and she notices Hannah looking at Max and Owen, and you're like, cool, now Hannah's going to be caught up in the crossfire of all of this, so that's going to be an issue. I'm so curious to see how that all plays out. The next episode is the season finale, so I'm pretty sure like things are probably going to get pretty wild. I'm just not quite sure how this is all going to end up like playing out, getting resolved, if obviously resolved at all, like where the season's going to end, what gets concluded, what gets left open. Obviously, the fact is that Owen's got the tracker on him. He's going to get kidnapped next episode and probably tortured and almost killed, but Max is going to come through and save him, or maybe she's going to sell him out, but it's like, hey, I still got your back because, hey, I had a tracker on you, and there probably is going to be that whole ultimatum that Owen's going to have to make. It's like, hey, well, it might be a situation where he has to choose between like Terrence and Hannah and Max. So his loyalties more so to his friends than Max and even the CIA. Or he has to choose between his loyalties for the CIA or Max, who he has grown to kind of care about. They're both kind of like, yeah, when it's all said and done, we won't miss each other. But, there's a special bond formed when you kind of go through the trenches with someone. So they've kind of been through a lot together. So... And regardless of it all, I do believe Max when she did say but that's also the thing. She's that good of a liar, so it's hard to say whether or not you can fully believe her. When it might be a thing of when she says, hey, you're the only person I can trust who's never let me down. It could be a thing of she wants to believe that. She wants to believe it, but she actually can't. Maybe it's kind of a deal with that. I don't know. Like I said, we'll have to wait to see how the season finale plays out. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.